Welcome to Active Love Adoptions podcast. I'm your host, Mackenzie Love, and today we have Melaina. She is back. We're so excited to have you.
Did you want me to say hi? I didn't know if you wanted to say
Hey. Hi. No, she was on our podcast a few months ago.
Yeah.
And she was going to come back and tell us about her going and meeting her birth family in Colombia. Mm-hmm. And you did that. Was it last month?
Yeah. Seems like it was forever ago, but yeah, it was last month.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm really excited because I follow you on social media. So I've been watching all of your videos and I just bawl my eyes out. You have one pinned. I think you put it all together and put it in a reel.
Is it me hugging all of them?
Yeah.
That one. Yeah.
And I was just
the first time I met all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was bawling and I was like, this is beautiful.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, where do you want me to start? That's where I'm like, where do you want me to start?
Let's see. Let's start from the very beginning. I say it every time. The very beginning. So let's talk about your adoption story first.
Okay. Just like recap everything.
Yeah.
Kind of
just recap
it.
everything
Okay.
and then we'll go into.
Okay. So I was adopted at 2 weeks old and my mom came down to Colombia. So they had somebody like through their neighborhood that like helped with that. And I wish adoptions were still done this way this day. They took like all the middlemen crap out. And so adoption, it was just solely for like birth mom and stuff, like to pay for that kind of stuff, cover that kind of stuff. And then obviously you had to cover your own cost to get down to Colombia.
Sure. Yeah.
So she went down to Colombia, stayed down there for a month. The courts, it's crazy because I'm also learning a lot of stuff from her too as I've gotten older, but the courts, I guess, were closed. That's why she was stuck down there a month.
Okay.
Because I was like, a month is a really long time. Like, and I know with some foreign adoptions, they like you to go there and stay there and be with the kids, but she said it was longer because she had to wait for the courts to open to get all the paperwork done. So anyway, I was born, then she, at 2 weeks old, she got me. That sounds weird, but she got me. And then stayed there a little bit longer to get everything finalized and then came back home. We're here in Utah, so that's where I've lived like my whole entire life. But growing up and everything, I never felt any different. And I know some adoptees don't feel that way. And I definitely am totally different because my family's white and I'm Hispanic.
Yeah.
And so, but my parents, that's like one of the best things they did. I remember they always were trying to buy different colored dolls and trying to just do everything to make me feel like, hey, you're Hispanic. We honor that. We want you to own that.
That's so important.
Yeah. And even growing up, same kind of thing. They're like, if you want to do Spanish, they never force it, but they're like, if you ever want to learn it, take it in class or at school for class and stuff.
Yeah.
So they were always super supportive that way. My siblings, same thing. I've never felt any different. And it does bleed into like my extended family too, because I'm really close with cousins now and stuff. And so it's just, and all my cousins have said that, like, they're like, we've never thought of you any different but family. Like never like, oh, Melaina's the adopted one.
Right.
Never like that. And so that's been great and stuff. And so it really, I honestly, I didn't realize this either until we went down to Colombia, but my husband's like, you never had an interest in finding your family. He's like, I met you, we were dating, I'd ask you and you'd shoot me down super fast. Like, no, I'm not going to, which shocked me because I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyway, just because now that I have it in my life.
Yeah.
And so then, when I turned 30, I was kind of like, well, and it was like a whole big, I don't know, bunch of like life changes for me. Like I wanted to like who I was more as a person. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you go right ahead.
Not give like a shit or anything about like the way I looked and just really just work on just trying to be happy and just trying to be better in my life. And a lot of that just, I don't know. And then a lot of interest was like, okay, well, maybe I do want to find my birth mom because my sole reason for finding my birth mom was to thank her for what she did. And I know you're a birth mom and I know, so like for you, it's huge too, because like, for her, it's, and even now have met her, like for her to do something like that, I can't even imagine like now having kids. And I know you get it. Like, it's like a huge piece of your heart that I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I could see that when I was like down there, and I'll get into that more like with her and stuff. And so, but I was like, okay, I think I want to do this. So I told my husband, he's kind of like, okay. Like, cause it was so out of the blue for him. Cause he's like, you never wanted anything to do with it. And then it's just kind of crazy how all of the cards came into play too. And I don't know if I think I did share this last time I was on, but he started with the company. It's been almost 10 years now. And the very first place he went for work was Colombia. And I was like, oh my gosh. So he's made a whole bunch of contacts down there. So when I wanted to start on this journey, it'd been, he'd been like 4 or 5 years into the company. So he knew people.
Yeah.
So he talked to them, asked them, you know, hey, how could we maybe find her? And so they started to do things, and, you know, they found her on welfare, but obviously they don't give information. So,
Right.
you know, so there I'm like, okay, she's alive,
Yeah.
you know, but
So
there's
that's
no way to
good.
contact her. Yeah.
I know, that's so frustrating.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get it. Because if it was me, I don't want my information out there either.
No,
you know?
I get that.
So,
yeah.
But so then I started Mother's Day of May 2017 was when I started, when the Facebook Lives were like all the rage. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get on live and just try this, because social media is so insanely powerful.
Oh, yes.
I mean, even to this day, we know that. Mm-hmm. And so I got on and I just started sharing week by week, and I'm like, I'm just going to start these and you can follow along. I just want to start sharing things, because my parents, like my dad, he put this huge book together. It's huge. And I think I showed it to you guys last time. Every single document, every single thing they had to go through, like, you know, home studies, all that kind of stuff. It's all in there. I was just like in awe that my parents saved that. And so started going through that, started like, you know, releasing things I felt comfortable with, you know, obviously to the public.
Yeah.
And I had a friend from high school who, she's like, I have been watching every single live of yours. And she's like, and this is probably like, I don't know, 4 or 5 lives in. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I just had a friend post on her Facebook wall. She used to work for an adoption company. And she said she wants to help somebody find their birth family, but you cannot be mad if the outcome's not what you expected.
Right.
So I'm like, what the hell?
I don't care.
What,
I got
what do I
nothing
have to lose?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I'm like, sure, let's do it. Get in contact with this girl. Ironically, she speaks Spanish. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, it's just crazy.
How it all falls in place.
And then she worked for that agency. And then she is just like this extra super sleuth. She really is. And so she did, like, for her to do this all free, because other directions were like, pay this. I'm like, I don't want to pay $5 to $10 grand to have somebody do all this for me.
Yeah.
Like, I get it, but no.
Yeah.
And so it seriously took her, I think, 2 months until she found, like, my birth mom. I can't remember the timeline, at 2 or 3 months. And it was so fast.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm so curious what they use and how they do that.
Yeah. So I know Facebook, like, was a big thing. She got into different groups on Facebook, like adoptees from Colombia. And then she started making contacts of people who, I don't even know specifics, but just like who had ties to Colombia and ties to this. And then it's crazy because when I talk, there's so much. When I talked to my brother down there, the person that she ended up contacting, the girl that was looking, knew my brother, had dated like one of my biological brothers. And so she's like, well, I have this girl that says she's looking for her birth family, just mainly her birth mom. And he's in these pictures with her.
Yeah.
We think he's, you know, the brother. Oh, backtrack a little. I have had a picture of my birth mom and an older brother and an older sister my whole entire life.
Okay.
And so she's like, I think he's the little boy that's in the picture, you know, with, you know, the birth mom. And so sure enough, then she comes back to me and she's like, I think I found her. And I remember like every detail of that. Me and my husband and my cousin, who he's like my little brother, we just got done watching Baywatch, the new one with The Rock.
Oh yeah. So that's a good one.
The credits were going and we're like, and then I look at it and I'm like, holy shit. And so I show my husband and he's like, oh my gosh. And I show my cousin, they're like, oh my gosh, how cool. And I'm just like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't even know what to do. Like, she found her and holy cow. And so then she's like, I think you have a bunch of siblings. She's like, there's a whole bunch of kids in these pictures with her.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm going to look. And so of course this girl knew because she dated my brother. So she knew all of them.
Right.
So she just started giving names of everybody. So I start she's like, I think you should friend request these people. And I'm like, okay, that's not weird. So I send friend requests. And then, of course, you know, I'm like, hey, I think I'm your biological sister, you know? And the kicker is my birth mom told them nothing about me. So I was a secret. And so when I start sending this, they're like,
what?
Yeah, exactly. I had some of them, they're like, no, like some of them denied the request. Some of them, you saw them look at the message, but then nothing. But I get it. Like people reaching out, like, I think I'm your sister. And you're like, no. No.
Like, I have no idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So kind of crazy. And so then finally, my husband's contact down there, I got because my brother confronted my birth mom and she finally was like, yeah, I did. I placed a child for adoption. I just haven't told you guys because I didn't want to be judged, blah, 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 all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so we got permission to get her number and my husband's contact in Colombia, he called me and he's like, hey, you want me to call her? I'm like, sure. He's like, I'm doing it right now. And I'm like, holy shit. Okay. Well, okay.
Oh my gosh.
So he calls her and talks to her. And then he calls me back and he was just like, he's like, she's so happy that you're okay. She's so happy that you went to a good family. She's so happy that, you know, you have a loving husband and you have some kids. And because he only had 2 kids at the time.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, she's so happy and she really wants to talk to you. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like it just went so fast.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. So then I call my husband, tell him everything. So then as like word starts getting around with their family, they're all like, okay. They're like, well, we need proof. We don't want this being some creeper like coming at our mom, which I understand that. Yeah. So I had proof because I had something that's like her social. Mm-hmm. And I sent that to them and they're like, okay, yeah, you know, it's her. That's her signature and everything. That's her. And they just were in awe. Oh to kind of backtrack a little bit. When I told my parents I wanted to find my birth family, I don't think they thought anything would happen because it's international. So
right. And it closed. So
and it wasn't a threat. So they're like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But as soon as I found my birth mom, I remember specifically calling my mom and I told her, I was like, oh my gosh, guess what? They found her. Mm-hmm. And the words out of her mouth, so if she ever hears this, she's going to be very pissed off at me, was, we adopted international, so this would never happen. Yeah. So
she admitted that.
Yeah. So it crushed me. And I'm like, okay, you know, like, love you, bye. And hurry and hung up. Yeah. Like, I can feel all the feels again, feeling like when that's.
I'm so
called
sorry.
my husband bawling. Like,
yeah.
Are you shitting me? Like, are you kidding me? This is, and he's like, I'm so sorry. And so, but then for me, I pulled away because if people aren't supportive and they don't want to hear things, then it's like, then why the hell should I share anything with you? So I pulled away. And that caused more drama with, well, you never included us. You never wanted us. And I'm like, I didn't tell you anything because I didn't want to hear it. Like, I'm being frank with you. Well, I did not want to hear it.
The first phone call, when you tell me that you didn't want this to happen, why would I share anything else with you?
Exactly. And it's not just like anybody that would share something like that, not just about adoption related, but with somebody and they say something like that to you. And then it's like, why the hell should I give you a piece of my time?
Exactly.
I don't want to share this with you.
No, I agree.
Because for me, I didn't want to get shot down. I didn't want to, you know, keep
you
getting
don't need the negativity
over.
either.
Yeah. So.
Because that doesn't help.
That was really hard. That was probably like one of the hardest things ever.
Really sorry.
And so it's not your fault, but thank you.
I know, but still, I can't imagine as a mom saying that though.
Me neither.
Like, I can understand she was probably really shocked and hurt.
And I understand that. Feelings are valid. I'm not saying my mom's not valid in her feelings, and I'll always back that up. And because I know that, and because I've grown up and I've learned that it's not me, it's her.
Yeah.
And so I can say that because any other person would be, you know, pretty much like, screw you. Like, I don't want anything to do with you. And they'd be so angry and hate their mom. For me, it's not like that. Like, it's just like, okay, you know, this is her issue and I have to remember that. But I also... my grandma is a saint too. It's not her mom. It's my dad's mom. I called her and kind of opened up about it because she's like, I heard, you know, you're looking for your birth mom. And so I told her and I kind of told her about the things with my mom. And she goes, don't talk to her about it then. She's like, you have every right to know where you come from. Mm-hmm. And so talking to my grandma, that completely fueled me to keep going. Because I'm like, okay, well then I'll still do this.
Yeah. So, I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's been a rough patch there. And so kind of, okay, now to kind of get back on track. Okay, so then... come to find out, there's like 7 kids total of us in my biological family.
Yeah.
So, you know, I knew about an older one, but he lived with a grandma. And then the ones that are in the picture with my birth mom, which is an older brother, older sister, and then it's me. But then I found out I had 3 little brothers too. And so I'm like, holy cow. I'm smack dab in the middle.
Right.
And so when people find that out, they're very, very, very confused. And I'm just like, well, you have to understand dynamics are not like what families are here. You don't live together. You're like, the oldest was raised by a grandma. The other 2, from what I can recollect, because I didn't ask a ton when I went down, to be honest. I just wanted to be in the moment with them.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
And so they just kind of... I think other people helped raise them and stuff like that because they're like, well, how did they not know that she was pregnant? Because me and my brother that's just younger than me, we're like 20 months apart. So we're pretty darn close.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, how? And I'm like, well, when you're a little kid, you don't know any timeline of like how much your mom has a belly when she's pregnant with a baby.
Exactly.
So, you know, and the other ones, like the oldest, he was never around because they're like, well, the oldest one was 13. I understand that. And yes, he would have remembered, but he wasn't there. He was with grandma.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And she may have talked to him, but that was back in the days when phones were pick up and talk that way. You know what I mean? Not this FaceTime shit that we have now. But so find out. But then my youngest brother, so he is, I think, how much younger is he? 9 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like 9.5 years younger than me. And he knows English. So for me, and I don't know, depending on if you follow me or anything, for people that are listening to this, I am a huge believer in God, and I don't care like what religion or whatever you are, like it has solidified my belief in God 100%. This whole story has. Yeah. And so that to me was another holy shit, like this was meant to be, because he knows English, because he reached out to me. He's like, hey, I speak English. We don't need a translator. I can translate for our mom. I'm just like, holy cow. Yeah. And so he did that so much, like for years. And then it's kind of crazy because like we met, we talked on Father's Day of 2017. I remember specifically, we talked to everybody. It was just crazy. It was amazing. My brother came over because he spoke Spanish, because, he served a mission and spoke Spanish. So he's like, I'll be there to help you, support you. Yeah. He never uses it, but I can't believe how much of it came back, like when he was talking to him. But they're like, you don't have to worry about that either, because my brother was there. But right. I remember meeting him. Him for 6 years. Yeah. And it died.
I didn't know that. That's what I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah. So I've known him for 6 years. And so after like 2 or 3 years, things just kind of died. Like we'd say hi here and there, but it's just you get on with your life. Yeah. And so it just happened. And so I get that. My husband, they've asked me so much, when are you coming? When are you coming to Colombia? Yeah. When are you coming? And I'm like, I don't want to. Because like for me growing up, yes, my mom went 36 years ago, because that's how old I am. Totally different. Totally, completely different. Colombia was a whole different show. Yeah. But it's changed so much since, she's been there. And so I was terrified to go, because there were just, I won't share these things because they are pretty awful, but it's just some awful things that would be said, like what my situation would be like, and I won't say exactly, but just like maybe on the streets or stuff like that. And so for me, I'm like, holy shit, these people are like crazy poor, but I don't know anything about them. Yeah. It's not that case. But so I was always terrified to go. And the crazy thing is my husband, he's probably been, I don't even know how many times, he's been so much. And he's like, I am this tall white American, and I go and I'm totally fine. He's like, you're going to be okay. Yeah. And I'm like, he's like, you fit in way more than I do. And I'm like, okay, fine. And so finally, like, we tried to piggyback this year off of one of his work trips, because he goes to Colombia like 3 or 4 times a year. Yeah. And so, but it just was not happening. So he just looked at me, and my husband, he has so many points from the flights that he takes. Yeah. He looks at me, he's like, let's just do it. Let's just book it for our anniversary, and it's your mom's birthday. Let's just do it. Let's just book it. And I'm fine. I'm like, okay. So then I tell my little brother, because he was kind of in the know, and he'd keep bugging me. Have you booked a ticket yet? When are you coming? We can't wait to see you. Yeah. So finally I'm like, okay. I told them in March, I think, when I looked at my phone. Yeah. When I told him, and we didn't leave till August. Once we booked the tickets in March, that was it. I was done. We weren't talking about it. You asked my husband, I wouldn't talk about it. He'd bring it up. Finally, 2 weeks before, he's like, Melaina, we have to talk. We have to get this put in place. I'm like, okay, fine. Because I was so nervous. I don't think anybody but like really adoptees can like relate to the nervousness of it, especially with closed adoptions, like with my your age, like our generation, our age. It's like none of them are open, and I think open is so beautiful. And I know some adoptees have grief with that, but I think it's beautiful, because for me, there's nothing wrong with more family. That's just me, and especially if it can work. Yeah, for sure. Then it's even more beautiful. But so then, I talked to my brother. I'm like, hey, he's like, well, I want it to be a surprise. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, are people going to be mad if it's a surprise, because people aren't going to have work off and we're coming? And he's like, no, it'll be great. And he's like, we will surprise her on her birthday, because her birthday's our anniversary, which is so wild too.
Okay. That's crazy.
So crazy. So like we figured that out. So we're like, okay. So my one brother, they wanted to get like an Airbnb type thing away from the city for her birthday, because she loved it. So she's like, can we do that again for my birthday? So my brother tells me, and he's like, hey, we're going to go do this. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't commit to going to this. Yeah. And my anxiety is so freaking high right now. Yeah. And I don't feel like I'm an anxious person, but I'm like, I have to put my foot down, and I'm not going. Yeah. I'm like, I can't do it. And he's like, damn it. Okay. He's like, well, it's the other brother that's planning it. So he's like, so I'm like, okay, let's clue him in. And Ben's like, you just need to clue everybody. And Ben's my husband. He's like, just clue everybody in.
Yeah.
And Ruben, my little brother, he's like, no, we're not going to. I'm like, ugh. So he's like, we'll just clue John in. So we, call that brother. And he's like, I can't believe you're coming. Like, he's like, you have to come with us. And I'm like, I understand, but you guys have to understand. And that from the get-go, I think was the biggest reason, like, it made it even, like, I felt more comfort going down there, is how respectful they were of my boundaries. And I get... Good. It's foreign, and of course they don't want to like push me away, so they're doing everything but it's just their nature too. I can tell it's who they are. Yeah. And so I've realized I'm super handsy.
No, you're fine. Be all handsy. I'm surprised. I've sat still. I'm really proud of myself. I'm like telling myself, okay, don't move.
No, you're good. So then, oh shit, I lost my train of thought.
They're just really sweet.
Oh yeah. That's just okay. So it's like 2 weeks out. And like I said, Ben's like, okay, Melaina, we have to. And I'm like, okay, fine. So we call him and I'm like, my little brother, I'm like, this is the plan. We're going to come down for just a couple days to see you guys. And then we're going to go to Santa Marta, which is like on the Caribbean side of Colombia.
Right.
To go get like a little getaway. Mm-hmm. And my husband knows me too well. And he's like, okay, well, I have us going, to Bucaramanga and then to Santa Marta after a couple days, but I don't have a flight home because I know you. He's like, you're not going to want to leave. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, he's like, okay. So then like it gets closer and I'm like, okay, yeah, cancel that flight and let's just stay the whole time and we'll just fly back home.
Yeah.
So then I tell my brother that and he's like even more excited because he's like, okay, great. We'll have more days with
time.
You. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, no, that sounds great. And so his girlfriend, ironically, speaks English too. And she was a godsend the whole entire trip. Mm-hmm. So we get ready to go down. Kids are all situated. My mother-in-law is the most amazing person ever. And I just love her. And she's like a mom to me. And so she took our kids. She was supportive of this whole thing, just so excited.
Good.
And so she took our kids and we traveled. It took us 24 hours, like... Not the plane ride, but just like with delays and stuff to get there.
Yeah, I was following your stories.
Yeah.
I'd be like, has she posted yet? I have to watch this. You have no idea. It was like a TV show for me. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. I was like, I don't want to like anything or comments. I don't want to bug her, but I'm like, I'm just sitting back and watching.
You're so funny. But so we get there the following morning. Of course, we're both so sleep deprived because it's a red eye. And it was 7 hours because our plane rides were crazy. We flew out of LA to Bogota. And then once we got to Bogota, it was like a 30-40 minute flight to Bucaramanga, which where I'm from.
Right.
And so when we got to Bogota, I text my brother and I'm like, hey, we're going to be there about an hour. And he's like, holy shit, you are. We thought it was later. He's like, okay, we have to. So he's like, so they're like scrambling. So then we land and like going, it's so crazy because you have to go through immigration to get into Colombia.
Okay.
And so when I got there, like my birthplace says Colombia, but I have an American passport because I've been here my whole life. And all of them just start running off in Spanish and they're like, we need your Colombian passport. And like, luckily my husband, he can like piece shit together, thank goodness, in Spanish. And he's like, no, she was adopted. Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. And so then they let us through.
Oh, good.
And
that could have been bad.
I know. And luckily he is not crazy white. Like he is kind of tan and has darker hair.
I was going to say, I wouldn't. Yeah.
So luckily it's not like some blonde, blue-eyed guy that's like, I'm taking this Colombian. Because can you imagine? They'd be like, he's trying to take her away. I'm like,
I didn't even think about that.
I'm so glad. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
It was him. And so we get through, then we get on the plane. And the sad thing, I remember sitting in the airport in Bogota before we got on the last airplane. And I look at my husband and I'm like, these people are like normal looking people. And he starts laughing and he's like, well, yeah, like, what did you expect? And I'm like,
okay, I have to comment on this because I have never traveled outside of the U.S.
The country.
I've moved around a ton. So I've been all over the U.S., but I've never been out of the country.
Yeah.
We went on a cruise. That's it. So for me, I have the same perspective.
Okay,
like my husband wants me to go to Mexico and I'm like, no, did you hear about this? And did you hear about this? And he was like, we'll be fine. And I was like, I don't know. So I just want you to know, you're not alone in that because I definitely feel the same way. No. And I know I'm going to get laughed at for that. But I genuinely like, well, I'm in a foreign place. I can't read anything. I don't.
Yeah.
Like that stresses me out.
No, I get it. No, I get it. No,
like,
okay, that makes me feel better. Because like, I don't know if it's half of like the stuff my mom would say growing up too. So I figured like it's going to be all these poor people or people like these war criminals. Nothing like that. Yeah. They're like normal ass humans just like us. And so I'm like, so he just thought that was hilarious. He's like, Melaina, what did you think? I'm like, I don't know what I thought. That is so funny. Then as we do that like calmed me more because I'm like, okay, when we meet these, like my family, they're going to be normal people. Yeah. And he's like, well, no shit. Duh. And I'm like, ugh. So we get on the plane and I text my little brother. And it's so crazy to me because, like, I've always thought there was a God or some kind of higher power, but I've never had a crazy belief in it. I mean, like, you know, you come from the same church I do, and it's just kind of ingrained in you. But then you get older and you discover and whatnot. Yeah. So I'm just like, okay, whatever. But this whole entire thing, like, solidified my belief in God. Like, you got to go back to when I first met them. Like, holy cow. Like, that's when it solidified it. And then every step after. Yeah. And I remember getting off that, like, deboarding the plane in Bucaramanga to like go get our bags and go find them. And I was just like overcome with like emotion just to myself that like, and it makes me cry every time I think about it, but it was just like, it's gonna be okay. No matter what, it's gonna be okay. And I was just like, okay, like, yes, Ben's here, but like God knows what's going on and it's gonna be okay. Yeah. And so we get off, you know, we get our luggage. And if you like, you can go stalk all this. It's on my social too, because I've saved it in like a whole bunch of Colombia bubbles. But we get off and I text him and I'm like, hey, we got our bags. Because my brother's like, we will pick you up from the airport. And so like they, you know, they come to get us and like, I'm like so nervous. I'm like, and it was our anniversary. And the crazy thing is my best friend texts me and she's like, happy anniversary. And I hope you made it to Colombia safe. I'm like, love you. And you guys have a good day. And so I went to the bathroom when I come out and I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, happy anniversary. He's like, oh yeah, it is our anniversary. We were so sleep deprived. Oh yeah. And just, I get that. And so then we go out and the way that the airport is like, you go on the top floor is to like go in for outgoing flights and the bottom floor is for arrivals. But they were on the top because like they haven't gone very many places. So they're thinking, okay, this is where she's going to come because this is where you drop people off. Right. Which I get. If you're not savvy with any airport, you're not going to know that. Oh, yeah. And so then we go out and I'm like, okay, well, where are they? Like, this is weird. And so we're like looking and of course there's people with signs and I'm like, that's not them. Like, because it's just, you know. And so finally he's like, okay, we're coming. And so then I remember seeing him in a distance because my littlest brother's the tallest. Yeah. They're not very tall people, but he's the tallest. He's like 5'9", I want to say. Yeah. And so, but I remember seeing him and like Ben stood back because he just knew. And I just was like, this is crazy that this is real because I've seen him so much on screen. Yeah. And so like we hugged and as soon as we hugged, like we were both crying and neither one of us could talk. And so we were kind of just like, this sounds weird, making like noises, but like trying to. And he's like, I can't. And I'm like, I can't talk either. Like it was just so crazy. And so he's like, just how are you? And so we sat there and hugged. And when I watch the videos, it makes me laugh because I notice when I hug people, I like hug them and then I like rock with them.
I think it's just a natural mom. Like your kids are coming to be comforted, so you just rock with them. Yeah, no, I get that. I did that with everybody, but nothing wrong with that.
No, I was like, well, that's awesome. They're probably like, what is going on? Just how I am. Sorry, I need to ask them about that. But I don't think they'd even notice it. I forget there's a camera there. I probably shouldn't like keep touching my face.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
But so then my other brother came. And then my other brother who I hugged first, his girlfriend, she came as well. And she speaks English too. And so she was like amazing. She videoed everything from her side because if you see Ben's video that he did, I love him, but it was horrible because he was like filming us and then like he came up and so he got distracted. So the phone went that way and we're like that. And I'm like, babe. And his mom was pissed. She's like, you're the worst.
And he's like, a big moment.
Sorry. And then he was getting hugged. And so like the camera was going down and he's like, you shouldn't put me in, because he's just, it's probably the most people have seen him on my social media because he's just not about that. Yeah. And so, but then I hugged my other brother and this other brother, there's just, I don't know. It's so crazy each bond I have with each of them. Yeah. And so I hugged this brother and this brother is the one that I feel like me and him look the most alike. We act the most alike. He's just so much fun. And so hugged him and he cried. When I first met them over a screen, he cried too. And like he was just bawling. I was bawling. And then it was, I don't know. There's just so much with it. So anyway, so we go we go back to my brother's place, you know, we change, kind of do that. Then we go walk around, we go to eat lunch. And then we went back to the hotel because we could check in. Because, that's one thing that I would recommend for anybody, whether you're international or domestic.
Yeah.
Stay in a hotel. I know your family wants you to stay with them.
Yeah.
But for your mental state, I'm totally going to choke. For your...
Oh, no, you're fine.
I can feel it coming on because I'm getting over a cold.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's like...
It's the worst part, though, right now. Because you don't know when it's going to hit you. And
it's like long gone. So I promise I'm like...
Oh, I don't care at all.
It's
just
just...
some water if you need to.
But, like...
I'm not worried. You're fine.
We went to the hotel and then we just kind of hung out, and they're like, hey, it's going to be a surprise when she comes over. Mm-hmm. And so I text him. I'm like, do you want us to come back over to help set up? He's like, no, because people came way too early. He's like, so just stay there. I'm like, okay. So we could walk to his house. So him and my other brother who came to the airport, they walked and came and got us from the hotel. And then my brother's sweet girlfriends, the two of them, they were the ones in charge of like making sure nobody went to the door. And so like the rest of the family was like, this is weird. Like,
what are you guys doing?
Yeah. Why can't we go towards the door? And so we walk in, I sneak into my brother's room because it's like at the very front of the house. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, hey, you're going to FaceTime her. I'm like, oh, okay, what am I supposed to say? And of course they were nervous all over again. So nothing was like ready. Yeah. And I'm like, you guys, you can't get it together. So we call my one brother, and my brother's room is so freaking dark. I'm like, she's not going to know where I am because when I talk to her, it's like super lit because my house is all lit up. And he's like, well, just, I don't want her to recognize the wall. I'm like, well, you can't see anything, so she's not going to recognize anything. Like, it's fine. So we call her, and then my brother's girlfriend wasn't quite around that speaks English. And then we found her, and she came over, and she's kind of translating. Mm-hmm. And my birth mom kept saying, when are you going to come to Colombia? When are you going to come to Colombia? And little did she know I was in the next room. But so I was like, hopefully soon. Like, I don't know. And so then my brothers wanted to do it to like have me work it somehow to like have them come in the frame with me. Yeah. And so I'm like, they were no help at all. So if they hear this, they'll probably just laugh. But they were no help. And I was like, okay, fine. Just tell her I have a surprise for her. And they're like, okay. But luckily, my brother's girlfriend is so smart, and she knew exactly what was going on. So she backed up with her phone to record. Oh, good. It's like she knew. Okay. So they were so good because the brother's girlfriends, one was in charge of my birth mom's reaction, the other was in charge of the sibling reactions. Like, my brothers had this plan down to a T, which I was like, that's thank goodness. Nice, and Ben, I know you're gonna listen to this, and I love you, but you sucked as a photographer or videographer. And so I was grateful that they had it. And so then I tell her that, and then she's like, okay, like kind of looking at me like, that's weird, but okay. Yeah. And then my brother's coming to the frame, and if you've watched it, you see her, she just starts crying.
Oh yeah. No, I've watched that many times.
She just starts bawling. And so she's sitting there crying, and I'm like, okay, well, we should probably go because she's just sitting there crying. So I'm like, okay, we're coming. And you can hear me say that on my side and her side, depending on what video you watch. And so then we go in, and my other... 4 siblings had no clue I was there either.
Oh my gosh.
And so I walk in. Well, my little brother goes in front of me and he says, hi, family. And everybody's like, hi. And so then I walk in, and when I watch it, my hi was so, like, now I watch it, it's so awkward, but I was so incredibly uncomfortable. I go and I'm like, hi. Like, it's just like that.
I didn't think it was uncomfortable. Hi. When I was watching, I thought it was fine. Your mom's reaction, or your birth mom's reaction, was my favorite, though. Yeah. Like, you could see she was just
floored. And
oh my gosh. She was so surprised, but she was so happy. Yeah. So when she's looking down in that video, you're FaceTiming her. Is that what she's looking at? Yeah. Because I didn't know if you like wrote her a note or anything. No. Okay. Yeah. So that's what it was.
So then, but the funny thing too is if you watch the other siblings in some of the other videos, I don't know if I've shared them, like they're like, what is going on? And they're like trying to look at the phone because all of a sudden my brother's girlfriend takes it and puts it on a table away from her. And they're like,
wait, what happened?
What are we doing? Like, none of us got to say hi to her because they usually say hi to everybody. Yeah. And so then, then I walk in, but it was so surreal because like I walk in and I see her, and my one sister-in-law, she's the cutest. It's my favorite. When I was talking to her, she's like, if that would have been me, I would have been like, where is she? Like, tell me where she is. And I'm like, I think she's in too much shock.
Yeah, she was just shocked. She didn't know what to do.
So then I come out, and you can see it whether you watch my video that has music or watch my video that doesn't have, like, has her speaking. Mm-hmm. Like, the first thing she says is, like, you know, hi, my love, and just, like, runs to me and embraces me. And I just remember hugging her and just, like, you know, we're both crying, but I was also so happy and so excited. So, like, I was crying, but I wasn't fully crying because it just was so exciting.
Yeah.
She was bawling, and she kept grabbing me and touching me, which I get, because we never got it, like, they took me right away from her, like, after I was a C-section. Like, she got no bonding time with me. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, she's, like, touching me, and, like, my brother's, like, trying to translate everything right there. Yeah. And he's like, I'm not trying to be awkward, but I just want you to know what she's saying. And he's like...
that would be hard for me, too.
Because he's, like...
show the emotion in what they're saying, yeah.
So he's like, she's saying, you know, hello, my beautiful little girl. Like, I love you so much. I'm so happy you're here. Which... like, if like taking Spanish and stuff, I kind of knew all the basics of that. Yeah. So, but still, like, it was so sweet of him. And same with his girlfriend. When I went around to hug each of the siblings, she stayed right next to me and translated everything the siblings said to me. That's so sweet. But so she hugged me, and then she went straight for Ben, and then I hugged my oldest sister, or my older sister first, then my older brother. They were bawling. Mm-hmm. Then I hugged my oldest brother, the one that never, like, lived with them. Yeah. Hugged him next, and he would not cry. He was like a rock the whole time. But he just was like, I'm so happy you're here. Like, we love you. Yeah. And then my brother, who I'm 20 months older than, it totally completely took me off guard because he picked me up. And I'm not used to people, like, picking me up. Yeah. And, like, maybe my husband, but, like, that's it. But I'm like... So he picks me up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and everybody starts laughing, and my one brother's like, careful, because I'm like, but like, and then he just starts sobbing, and I'm just like, I don't know what to say, so I'm just like, hi, like, hugging him, and so it just was magical, and it was amazing, and it's just, I don't know, it's something, I always watch the videos, and I always cry too, because just the feeling of it, like, you know, then we were there the rest of the trip, and I'll just kind of squish this together. We did a lot of family stuff, bowling, lots of dinners, lots of everything. Some of the highlights of it, they would not let us pay for one thing. Oh, and I know that was a big worry with my parents, is they're like, they're going to take advantage of you with money, which I understand, but that was the furthest thing from it. Yeah. Like, we had to steal the dinner bill a couple times so we could be like, take that, bitches, we're going to pay. Because I'm like, let us pay. Yeah. Like, your family does too, you know, and like, it's just amazing. And like, they would watch me, and as the afternoons hit, like, even the afternoons in general, when they hit, I just started to get tired. Because you know, being a mom and stuff, it's a lot. Yeah. And so like, they would 3:30 mark. It's so true. And so they'd see me, and I'd just kind of be sitting there, and they're like, go rest. And I'm like, I don't want to. And they're like, no, go rest. And I'm like, no, like, even though we're not doing anything, I don't want to leave. Yeah. Like, you guys don't understand that. Like, I don't want to leave. Yeah. And so they're like really worried about me because I'm always like half there, and I'm like, and then it just was magical. There were things that like Ben kind of observed, and he noticed more than I did, obviously, because he's more of like an outsider of it. Yeah. But he noticed contention between the siblings because it was a secret that they weren't able to get time off, which I wholeheartedly understand that. Yeah. And I didn't want to go down to be like a source of like, you know, fights or pains, which it wasn't. Right. Like, they were eventually okay. But I mean, I get it. Like, I come all this way, and, you know, they don't have the time. And that was my biggest thing. I'm like, they're not going to have time off. And I know how hard it's totally different than it is here. It's not something that you can just be like, oh, not saying that it's easy to get work off here, but like.
No, I know what you mean.
So then, my birth mom wanted to sit down with us, and I avoided it like the plague because I didn't want to.
Sorry, I laughed because I would be the same way. I'd be like, I don't know how I feel about this right now.
No, it's true. Yeah. And the more I was down there, the less that I wanted questions answered, because I'm like,
I'm fine with the way things are.
Yeah. Like, a lot of it when I went down, before I went down, I was like, I'm going to know everything about my birth dad. I'm not leaving until I know everything. And then when I got down there, I'm like, I don't even give a shit. And I was talking to my brother about it, and I was like, if this man wants no involvement, because supposedly we have the same dad, but timelines don't match up. Like, the last time she was with him would be the second to youngest, is what she's claiming. She's with him, but she claims we all have the same dad. But I'm like, that the math doesn't add up. Yeah, it doesn't. You would have had, maybe you did have a booty call with him. I don't know. And like I said, no judgment on her.
Oh yeah,
because I've had a couple reels go viral, and people are like, she need to keep her legs shut. And I'm like, it's not your damn business. Gosh. Like, that is
I can't believe how mean people are.
People are wicked.
And why? Why?
Why does it matter?
Like, it doesn't affect you.
Exactly.
Scroll on.
Yeah. No, I agree. And so those kinds of things, like, just, it's not my place. And the older I've gotten too, it's not my place to judge people, period.
Oh yeah. It's not funny. The older I get, I'm like, I don't care what you do.
Exactly.
Like, that's you. I love you no matter what.
Exactly.
I'll keep my boundaries and I'll do what I need to do. But
yes. 100%. And I wish more people would just be like that and be okay with it, because that's
me too.
That's all that, like, they claim this loving, like, if it is a loving God, well, yeah, but you are like under this God where you sit and judge people, and you know damn well God doesn't like that.
Right. Exactly.
Like, drives me crazy. And so, yeah, so we sat down and I kind of just like walked by myself, but Ben could tell, like, you can even see now, it makes me nervous. Like, Ben was like, kind of like, do I go? Do I stay?
Yeah.
Like what do I do? Yeah. He didn't really know.
Yeah.
And then luckily my brother's girlfriend, she's like, Ben, come on. And I'm like, thank you. So then he came with us. We went in her room and we sat and talked. And she just was like, I don't know, just she wanted her first thing out the gate. And I do feel bad about this now, like now that I look back, but it was a whole thing of me protecting my heart and my boundaries.
100%.
It was very awkward with her in the sense that I know she wanted to comfort me and take care of me more, but I don't have that relationship with her. So it was very hard for me to be open. And I have a hard relationship with my mom anyway.
Yeah.
So it was really hard. The one person who I'm probably the most open to receiving comfort is my mother-in-law, which I know that's not for a lot of people to say, but she truly, and she'll probably listen to this, she's the most amazing. Like, I tell Ben all the time, I'm like, how is it to grow up with a normal mom? He's like, good. Like, I don't know what you want me to say to that. Like, but seriously, like, so when we sat on the bed, she sat on this side, and then like Ben sat here and I sat on the other side of him. And then my brother's girlfriend sat in the middle because she translated everything.
Yeah.
But the first thing out the gate is she's like, I want to ask for your forgiveness. And she just started crying. And I look at her and I look, my brother's girlfriend, I'm like, tell her there's no forgiveness to be had, because my whole thing with this was to tell her thank you. And I'm like, I can't fathom how hard it is on her. I know it's probably even harder having me here, knowing I have to go back home because we're not close. I said, but I just want her to like know that like I'm grateful for all of this. Like, I have nothing but so much love and admiration in my heart for her, because now being a mom, I can't fathom doing that.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, and you get it. You 100% get it. And so, she's crying more because she's just like, because there's so many adoptees that could take it and honestly just be like a big F you. Like, to everybody, like, especially with my story, like people listen to it and they're like, how are you so grateful with everything when you have a hard relationship with your mom and like you have all these siblings back home with your birth mom and you're the only one? Like, how? And I'm like, you have to look at the bigger picture. Like, I have to look at it. Like, if I wasn't here, wouldn't have my husband, wouldn't have my kids, wouldn't have all the opportunities that I have here. Like, that's how I have to look at it. Who wants to dwell and be negative? Like you were saying earlier, around the negative shit. Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so we were just kind of talking. She was talking about, she imagined my arrival different. She would have picked me up from the airport. She would have done all this with me. But for me, now that I've experienced it all, it was better for my brothers to pick me up. I think it broke the ice a lot better.
Yeah.
To have them there, because I mean, I love my little brothers. Both of them, we can give each other so much shit. And it's just so much fun. And like my siblings here.
That's the way it should be.
I love them. And this is, I did talk about it on my stories, but like one of the most heartbreaking things about it is when we were there, we have a family chat and Ben sent in pictures of me and my birth mom to my family chat. And I'm shaking my leg because I'm getting nervous talking about this.
I'm sorry.
But no, it's okay. I want to share it. So he sent these pictures in of me and my birth mom. And my brother and his wife were the only ones that responded. And their response wasn't even big. Like, it was just a simple heart like you can do on an iPhone. But to me, that meant the world because it was being acknowledged.
Right.
Nobody else said anything. Obviously, when he sent these, we were in the moment with meeting my birth mom, so I brushed it off. But when we got back to the hotel, I was crushed. I was so pissed. Like,
I was gonna say, that makes me mad.
Yeah, like, I was livid. I was like, in my head, I'm like, what the hell? Like, you guys can't
be happy for you.
So I was so sad.
Yeah.
So I did text my sister. And I get there's people that are like, we didn't want to text you. We didn't want to bug you because of everything that you're. And I get that. But like.
But when I send you pictures, I'm expecting a response back.
Correct.
And then I'll get back to you when I can. All I needed in that moment was you to be there for me and to be happy for me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to share that moment with you because you guys are my siblings.
Yeah.
That's who I grew up with.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'm not trying to speak for you, but that's how I would see it.
Yeah.
And that's how I would want it. So
yeah,
I'm really sorry.
No,
that would have crushed me too.
And I'm grateful that like people can see that perspective. Cause of course with me, I'm like, am I just being irrational? Like, is this stupid? And so the good thing is like, since I've come home, the same brother that liked it or, you know, cause they just hearted it and they're like, it wasn't like, cause they were laughing cause they're like, it wasn't even a big gesture. I'm like, I know, but it was the fact that you guys said something.
Yeah.
And same with my sister-in-law. I texted my sister-in-law off to the side and was just like, you know, and then she started texting me back. It's like, I get people get busy, but if they text you first, it's an invitation to text them back.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so just like you were saying, and they invited us over for dinner. They wanted us to share everything about Colombia. Like they were the best. Same with my husband's side. And my sister-in-law called me and she's like, you need to come up. We're doing dinner. And like so it's my husband's brother and his wife. We went up there and shared everything with their family too.
Good.
His sisters don't live close or else I know it'd be the same thing. His sisters were awesome. Wished me well wishes before we left and stuff. But
yeah.
So the good part about that too, though, is I've talked to most of my siblings and I was able to be honest with them and they all felt really bad. Like, good. And they're like, you know, we're sorry. We didn't, you know, and I'm just like, my family just sucks at communicating, period. Like they just do. And it's something we're working on. That's for a whole nother different thing. I won't go into that. My family's in a really hard spot, but we've had some really good healing things going forward. But we still, anyway. But
and are you the only one that's adopted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's the other thing I was going to kind of touch on too is like, so I've got 2 older brothers, 2 older sisters here that are, you know, biologically my parents. And like I said, I've never felt anything different from them. I'm their sister. I know that.
Yeah.
But the best way to put it is it was kind of growing up in like, I don't even know how to say it, like a cold family, not a lot of touching, not a lot of I love you. And I'm not used to that. Like with what's embedded in me, I guess you could say. I'm not used to that. Like I hugged people. I mean, like I hugged you when we first met.
Like, I was wanting to like run out of my car and be like, Melaina, I get to meet you.
But you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's the type of human that I am. And so.
Oh yeah, it's ingrained in you for
it's
sure.
Like, it's just weird. Like, and so that's what I was getting back to is like with my little brothers, I can have that relationship with them.
Yeah.
Because it's just so...
It's easy.
And it's good. And they're just like that. But with my brothers here, I can't joke about like things like that. Like, you know, half of it's religion, half of it's just who they are. And it's just, for me, it's just like, you know what? It's whatever. It is what it is. I mean, it's gotten better. With my oldest brother, now I can like, our relationship over the last year has crazy like transformed. Our families have gotten really close. And so like, it's just been amazing. But anyway, so... I don't know, just to like kind of end it because that's kind of it. Like, I mean, we came back home, not crazy support from my family. I kind of touched on that. My mom tried to play the supporter, but she really wasn't.
Yeah.
With her, it's a lot of I support you, but there's a lot of buts after a lot of things. And that's how it was right before, like the night before we left. It was one of the most, like, I'll share this too, is she called me and she's like, you know, good luck tomorrow. I've been thinking about you. She's like, if Ben wasn't going with you, I'd make your dad. And all I could think of is, why wouldn't you want to come with me?
Right.
Like, she would have an open invitation.
Yeah.
But if I'm being honest, she really wouldn't, because of the mental state that she's in. I could not handle it. Yeah. Like, it would be more detrimental to have my mom there with me.
Yeah, I understand that.
You know, I want somebody who's mentally sound. Like, I would take my mother-in-law. I would totally take my mother-in-law with me. But it's like, and me and Ben were talking about it, and I was like, if Mia had anything like this in her life that was huge, I'd be calling her every night and she'd be like, Mom, I don't want to talk yet. But you know what I mean? Like, wanting to be involved. Like, I'm supportive, or I'd be there with you if you wanted me to be there with you. Yeah. But it's not like that. So that's been really hard. My dad's just a guy. He's an old fashioned man. He doesn't say a lot of words, you know what I mean? So he hasn't, I mean, he said a few things like, you know, I'm happy for you and this and this, and, but just more than just not a whole lot of communication about it. But, I don't know. So it's just kind of like end me rambling.
No, I loved it. I'm glad you got to. I've been dying. Sorry. Let me just get.
No, you're good.
I've been dying to hear this story because I've been following you, and I feel like you and I have so much in common. I feel like we're so similar in a lot of ways. So honestly, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you can get it out.
Thank you. Well, but thank you for letting me like come on and share this, because I do like share it, because it's crazy. Like, you know, you said it was a month ago, but it feels like forever ago. But I feel like the further I get away from it, the less that like I can remember. And I'm very grateful for everything that was documented. But like, it was amazing. And that's the thing is people, when they see me, they think, well, I've got a good life here, a good life, you know, there, but there's up and downs to it. Like my family life here is really hard, and I'm grateful for my husband. And if you've seen or watched anything, like, he's the number one person I lean on. He truly is my best friend. He's so damn supportive. Like, I don't know how I could do life without him. Like, and no, Siri. And he travels a ton, like, for work. So he's not home a lot, but like, he seriously is the most supportive, and he's so calm. If you meet him, he's quiet, and he's just like, just calm. And it's so good to the chaos that I am, because going down there, it just was everything that I needed. Yeah. And so and I know he'll listen to this, but I'm forever grateful for him. And he's the best all around. And the crazy thing is how much they loved him. I was like trying so hard not to bawl.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry. We usually have tissues.
No, it's okay. But they loved him so much, especially my brothers. And my brothers like hardly even know me. But going back home, they're just like, we're so grateful that our sister has somebody like you to take care of her. And I've never heard that from anybody. Like, of course, he's my husband, and I know how special he is. And of course, his mom is like, he's the best. Because, you know, it's his mom. But like, you know, for people to like actually see what I see in him, and like my parents, they're grateful for him. I'm not saying that without a doubt, but like, people who barely even know him and got 5 days to just know him, they could see the amazing person that he is, and they could see the love that we have with each other. And marriage is not very common down there. And so for, you know, me to be married and with somebody who's stable and have a home and have a stable job and have kids, and you know, it's just, it's heartwarming for them to see. And I just can't believe how much they love him. They love him so much. And so I'm forever grateful for that. But yeah, so to end it, it's crazy. I probably missed like things on it, about it, whatever. But like, there's so much. And like I said, I have different relationships with each of them down there, but it's been awesome. And it's been I'll just share this, the last thing. We're now communicating a lot more now that I've been home.
Good.
And we've like all kind of just like apologized that like life just got in the way and we stopped talking. But they're like, since you came, it kind of like sparked a thing, you know, and I want to go back so bad. Like, it's crazy, because like I would even go, if Ben went on a work trip, I'd be like, hey, let's go to Bogota together, and then I'll go here and you go there. Yeah, exactly. And because I know they take care of me, but it's just, you know, it's crazy. But, you know, I think part of it, Ben would be like, really? I don't want to go to work. Like, I'd rather go hang out with you guys. Yeah. So, but no, it was amazing. So yeah, I'll end it there. And then if you have questions or whatever, you can ask me.
I have a different perspective as a birth mom. I think of my birth son coming to meet, you know, his full siblings.
Yeah.
And after that long of time, it just kind of like, it just hits me hard. Like, I can't imagine them not knowing each other. And so I'm just so glad that you have that relationship.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I promised myself I wasn't going to cry. I do that every time. I like walk in, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be upbeat. I'm not going to cry. But I'm just so glad. And I do want to say I'm sorry that you don't have your mom's support, because having your mom's support, I feel like the person that raised you, the person that knows you and loves you, should be the one to be there for you 100% of the time. No matter what, she should put her feelings aside and know that this is what's best for you and your mental health.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, in your past, like you said, you didn't have any interest.
Right.
But you do now. Yeah. And she should support that.
Yeah.
So.
And no, that's been the hardest thing, is like the one person that you want to support you the most.
Yeah.
Doesn't. And I don't get it. To be honest, I don't understand it. And I know it's a lot of herself and a lot of her own insecurities, which she has voiced before, but I just like, my biggest thing too is like, I've talked to my cousins and stuff too about it. And it's just like, she doesn't own you. She doesn't owe you anything. You don't owe her anything.
Right.
Like, it's just weird. And for me, it's just like, what have I ever done for you to even think that I'd be like, okay, bye.
Yeah. Like you're no longer my family.
Yeah. No, it's not like that. So yeah, it's just a struggle, but it's okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm here for you. Okay. I love you. Yes. And I want what's best for you. And I hate to go back, but I'm curious, what else if you're comfortable sharing, what else did your birth mom talk to you about? Because you said she apologized right off the bat. And I was just, is there anything else that stands out to you that you guys talked about that kind of helped you?
There's things she said to me before, but she was able to say to my face too. She said that as soon as they took me away from her, like, because I was a C-section baby and I was the only C-section baby. And again, to me, that's totally a sign from God.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't get up and like come. But she said she immediately regretted what she did. And for me, that makes me very uncomfortable because I know I'm supposed to be where I am. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I can empathize with her because I can't even imagine. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so it was more just like a lot of sorry and a lot of she's so happy I am where I am. And she said one of the hardest things, which I never thought about this, but from her perspective, she was always like, I didn't know who you'd end up with because it was closed and you just go to some rando family.
Oh,
and
see, I could
like,
not imagine that.
Yeah, and she's like, the stories you would hear, like these kids getting into these families, and it is sad. I'm not saying adoption's perfect because it's not.
Right.
You know, kids get into families where they're shitty families. You know what I mean? The horrible things happen. Mm-hmm. And, you know, but I will say this because I always say it. It doesn't matter if you're adopted or not. Families can be shit. You can get into your own biological family and still have shit happen to you.
Oh, yes.
So, like, and she was just so grateful that I was able to have a mom and a dad. And I really did have an amazing childhood. The friends I grew up with, because I was 7 years apart from the siblings, I had the most amazing friends. There were like 4 of us, you know, 2 boys, 1 girl, and then me. And it just the most amazing. And, you know, my parents raised me with a belief in God and, you know, part of the Mormon church, which, you know, and I mean, I'm still a part of it, but I'm in it to have a relationship with God. Yeah. I'm not in it to do all the fancy schmancy shit that like people, I mean, you can probably tell that by me. Like I love going to church because I love the friends I have there, because the friends I have there are just like me. Yeah. And we're just in it to have a better relationship with God. We're not here to do X, Y, and Z like everybody who, and it's nothing against people that are crazy into the church. Yeah. But that's just not like what's for me or my family. Oh yeah. And I want my kids to have a belief in God, but if they don't stay in the church, I'm not going to be like, oh, damnation to you. Like not at all. Yeah. I just want my kids to have a belief in God.
No, I agree with that.
Because 100%. Of everything that's happened for me. Yeah. But you know, she's very grateful I have a belief in God, and I think from witnessing my siblings, I probably have the strongest belief in God out of my birth siblings. Yeah. But yeah, and I've been learning more about her from, you know, my brother and stuff too. And nobody's perfect. Like that's what relationships are hard down there for them with certain siblings, which I get. Like nobody's perfect. And that's what I keep telling them. Like, I'm not perfect either. Cause they're like, you know, I'm like, but it's really not. Like, you guys have got to understand, like, I fall short on a lot of things too, because I'm human. But I'm trying to think if she just was sorry. She, you know, she's like, I'm so sad that you don't get to stay longer. I wish you could stay, which I get. I totally get. Yeah. You know, she's like, but I do also understand that you have your kids to go back home to. She's like, just bring the kids next time.
Oh, yeah. I bet she's dying to see them.
Yeah. And so we would love to. I don't know how soon it'll be because, like, even though Ben has so many points, we still have to save money up for it. I was going to say, it's still an expensive trip for sure. Exactly. Yeah. So it probably won't be for a couple years, but I'll have, not that it's, like, scary, and I have so many siblings that, like, you know, they could tag team my children. Yeah. But it's, like, if my kids are a little bit older, you know, and Mia, and like, obviously, you know, Colombia, but is looked at so much for shady shit there. But it's not just Colombia; it's everywhere. It's in the U.S. Oh yeah. But you know, with my kids really want to go because they watched everything. That's the thing. My cute mother-in-law, they would sit down every night before bed and watch all my stories, and I didn't share a lot while I was there. Like I shared some. Yeah. But they got more of it because we would text them. So they just sit down at night and watch them all. But yeah. So yeah, I don't know if she said anything else, just like forgiveness and that she loves me and that she's so grateful that we finally got to meet, and, you know, going forward, we can build a better relationship. So that's probably about it.
Good. I love it. Yeah. I know. I can't imagine doing a closed adoption. Yeah. Not knowing where my son was, who he was with, and not having like that relationship with him. Yeah. That'd be so hard. Yeah. That's why I really am blessed as a birth mom, you know, to have the experience I did. So, and you mentioned your birth dad briefly. Do you want to talk about him at all?
I honestly don't know anything about him. Like nothing. When I asked her years ago, she said he knew about me. She said his name was Pedro. which I don't know how true that is because I'm like, okay. She claims we all have the same dad, but we are clearly not dumb, and us siblings have talked about it. We know we probably maybe have same dads between some of the siblings.
Yeah.
But definitely not all of us have the same dad. We're not that stupid. And I know kids can look drastically different, but like this is like, you can tell. But I don't know a lot about him. But like I was talking to my littlest brother about it. And like I said before, like if he doesn't want a part of this, like I don't need to know. Maybe one day, I don't know. Maybe one day I'll want to know more about him. But as of right now, I'm just, I don't know. I'm content.
Yeah.
And it does break my heart though in a lot of adoption stories, not just mine, that birth dads aren't a big part of the picture. Mm-mm. That's why I like love your and Ryan's story because like so he's sweet. Such a big part of that. Like, you know what I mean? When you guys came and shared with us, like, holy cow. Like, that's what I'm just like, why can't every man be like that? Like, because it's just amazing.
You're so sweet.
It's amazing.
No, we loved coming on your podcast. It was fun. It opened up a lot of dialogue for us too.
Good.
Afterwards, where we could, you know, it's really funny because it's been like, what, 12 years, and you think you've talked about it all. You think you've worked through it, and it's not the case. Yeah. Definitely not the case. Marriage is fun.
Oh, yeah.
And then, especially with our circumstances, it brings in whole other
added
stress to that. But I'm glad you have been. Yeah. He sounds amazing. Me too. And it sounds like we need to do like a double date or something.
I would love that.
We'll make that happen.
Yeah. You guys would love him. He's really shy and quiet at first, but once you get to know him, he's a lot of fun.
See, that's kind of how Ryan is too, though. Ryan comes across like he's very outgoing, and he is not. He has like really bad social anxiety. It cracks me up because you would never know.
No, he wouldn't.
No, and he's like a spokesperson for his work. So he's like in front of the camera all the time, and he's like, I hate it. I'm like, well, you chose it, dude.
That's so funny.
I know. But I want to mention your podcast because you have so many amazing stories on your podcast. And you had mentioned that you had asked me to do a podcast with you.
Yeah. It was like forever ago.
When you said that, I was like,
forever ago.
I wanted to go back through my messages because I'm like, I probably was just like too shy to even think about that, or probably was still working through some
you weren't
things.
comfortable with it, which was okay because I think I asked you a couple times. Yeah. It was years ago. I don't even know how long we've been friends.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. And then finally, like I saw you shared on yours. So I'm like, I'm going to try one more time to try and get her to come on. So then I did. And I was like, okay, cool. And then like, you know, you had me come on yours, but it's just like, I get it. You've got to get to a point where you're okay with it. Like, even Brennan, I asked if I could reach out, and I know he was on your podcast to him, and I reached out to him, but he's like, he told us too, he's like, this is only like the second time that I'm sharing it really big like I did. Mackenzie's was the first. Yeah. And, you know, it's just, people have got to get to a place, and when it's not common and when it's not something that you necessarily want to talk about.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not brought up when you're around people. Yeah. Because then people don't know, you know, and then when you start to bring it up, people are like, oh okay, well maybe we could talk about this. But I mean, it's also okay to be like, no, you know, I don't want to talk about it too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. And that's the thing is, and I know that's the same with you, like doing these podcasts on adoption, we're hoping to open up more dialogue I keep saying dialogue. We're wanting to open up. I feel like with every podcast, there's like a word I say and then I just keep reusing it. That's how small my vocabulary is.
Stop it.
No, but it's called The DM Show.
Yeah.
And you guys should check it out because it really is amazing. I've listened to a lot of them, and the insight and the different perspectives I really appreciate.
We have a good time. We are adoptees. I will preface this, that do really love adoption a lot. Yeah. We advocate for it. We think it's amazing. And there's a lot of heavy anti-adoption stuff. It's really a lot more heavier on TikTok, which it's more Delancey's area. I'm like never on TikTok. Yeah. And so it just breaks my heart, but it's also been very eye-opening to both of us too. And it's good because then we can talk about things and try and understand people's perspective. Our biggest thing is we will never take away from people who have hard stories because they're hurting so bad.
They are. And you said it perfectly. They're hurting, and there's a lot that they need to process and heal from. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of negativity comes from. 100%. Just maybe not fully understanding. Yeah. So it's rough. But I appreciate you and all you do for the adoption community. I just want to throw that out there.
Right back at you.
Thanks. Thanks. I do what I can. All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Like, really, I loved that I got to meet you. So
I know.
Awesome.
Finally.
I know.
In person.
In person.
Yeah.
And we're really not that far from each other. We both came further this way.
I know, right?
We're really not far.
We could have met in the middle.
It's fine. No worries.